a remarkable statement by President Trump on a social media post saying that the US has carried out a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its leader, President Nicolas Maduro, who has been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country. This operation was done in conjunction with US law enforcement. Details to follow. An incredible development in this, and one that seems to have not have been expected by Venezuelan authorities. We still don't know where President Maduro and his wife will be now. All we know from President Trump's statement is that they were captured and flown out of the country. We have not heard anything from Venezuela about that. But let's look now at who is the Venezuelan president, Nicolas Maduro. A former bus driver and union leader, Nicolas Maduro has led Venezuela since 2013, following the death of his mentor, Hugo Chavez. In 2024, he was declared president for a third term in an election widely denounced as rigged. The opposition says its leader won that election by a landslide. Donald Trump blames Maduro for the arrival of hundreds of thousands of Venezuelan migrants into the US. 8 million people are estimated to have fled the country since 2013 due to economic crisis and repression. President Trump has also focused on fighting the influx of drugs into the US. He's alleged that Maduro is himself involved in the drug trade. Maduro denies being a cartel leader and accuses the US of using its war on drugs as an excuse to depose him and to get access to Venezuela's vast oil reserves. Well, with me now is our global affairs reporter, Mimi Swaby. Mimi, incredible turn of events that we have been following this morning. How significant is that latest development, the announcement of President Trump, that President Maduro and his wife have been captured and flown out of the country following this large-scale strike?
It's incredibly significant. Many inside and outside Venezuela wouldn't believe it true only a matter of hours, if not days ago. The idea that there would be land strikes was something that has been warned for a long time now. However, it was thought by many that it was more of psychological warfare than it would actually happen. We've seen more than 35 strikes on alleged vessels carrying drugs from both Venezuela and on the other side of the continent in the Pacific Ocean, killing more than 110 people. But to actually go into the country itself, do land strikes there, and now allegedly capture Mr. Maduro and his wife and remove him from Venezuela is an unprecedented move. It's kind of been Mr. Maduro's tactic to hunker down and really repel any psychological warfare, which has been increasingly aggressive in the past few months since we saw that first strike on a boat in the South Caribbean Sea on the 2nd of September. For him to be removed, we don't know where, how, or any details yet, is and will come as a huge shock to many Venezuelans. People I've been speaking to in the country said that they heard multiple explosions or huge fires. Remember, Caracas is a valley, so that sound would have echoed around the city, being incredibly frightening. And that kind of onslaught of noise came for about 90 minutes and then an eerie silence. So this news will really have unnerved people even further. I mean, we heard there was a state of emergency in place. Mr. Maduro's government, his alleged illegitimate government, has declared a state of commotion. So no one can leave their house to try and understand what's happened anymore. Many people probably won't want to leave their house, but it really does show the level of uncertainty now. Is he in the country? Is he outside the country? Where is he going to, if this post on Truth Social can be believed? So it will come at a time where many Venezuelans will be panicking and largely in shock.
And what happens now? Because tell us a little bit about the power structure in Venezuela. This will, of course, leave a power vacuum in the short term. But what is the structure that would have surrounded President Maduro? I mean, we have heard from the Venezuelan defense minister, Pedrino, saying that some of those US strikes hit civilian areas. That is something that came from the Venezuelan defense minister. So what is the kind of the political structure that would have surrounded President Maduro?
President Maduro has a very small and loyal circle, immediate circle around him. You've got the defense minister, the foreign minister, individuals that are incredibly loyal and have kind of echoed the sentiment of violation towards Venezuela's sovereignty and seen any move by the US as an act of aggression and really repelled it. The military are President Maduro's greatest asset, and they have largely protected and ensured his kind of cementation in power for many years now. President Trump has alleged that Mr. Maduro heads something called the Cartel de los Soles, and that has been thought to be by many a cartel which has really got roots in the military, both former and present military officials. Now, Soles, meaning sun, is a symbol which military officials wear to show their rank. So those suns, the more suns, the larger the sun, the higher the rank. That is something that has been kind of said by the US and used as an excuse to push for more action against Mr. Maduro himself and his circle more largely. Now, this is something that the Venezuelan government has denounced, saying it doesn't even exist. And we've heard that from other countries as well. The kind of exact form, if it's true, exactly what the US says, or if it exists at all, is something that is up to debate. The truth perhaps somewhere in the middle. However, Mr. Maduro's circle is incredibly loyal, but he does heavily rely, like I said, on that military protection. And many will think that unless the military turns against him, that there will be no regime change. Now, he may have left a vacuum in place here, but we don't know if other officials have been wounded, if they are still in Venezuela. Many details are still yet to be discovered.
Thank you, Mimi Swaby, there with some more on that huge breaking news that's come through in the past few minutes, that the US President Donald Trump has said that the US has captured the Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. It says the United States of America has successfully carried out a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its leader, President Nicolas Maduro, who has been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country. This operation was done in conjunction with US law enforcement. That breaking news that's just come through in the past few minutes. Let's speak to our BBC producer in Caracas, Vanessa Silva. Vanessa, how much has this breaking news filtered through to people on the ground there?
Well, for us, it's all rumors. It's a lot of messages around WhatsApp this moment, but we have not official confirmation of anything of that. Just a few minutes ago, the Minister of Defense, Vladimir Padrino, just made a statement, call it as a criminal aggression by the United States. And he mentioned that among the targets was Fuerte Tiuna, the main military compound here in Caracas. And there were also other objectives in at least other 3 states of the country. They say that they struck civilian residential areas within missiles and rockets. But for now, we have not seen reports of civilians casualties or something like that. I live quite near the military air base here in Caracas. I just wake up almost at 2 a.m. in the morning with a huge bang. Everything was vibrating. My heart was pumping. I was shaking. I just jumped to the window, and I was able to see something in flames in the middle of the runway of this military air base. But then it was, Caracas is a valley, so the noise was huge, was impressive for us. And after that, everyone started to call, to share messages, to share videos from different spots of the country. I was able to listen other explosions, not so near at the first one. And also I was able to listen airplanes or helicopters, I'm not sure. It was more like an airplanes flying over the city.
And Vanessa, just going back to the news of the capture of President Maduro and his wife that has been announced by President Trump, just tell us a little bit more about the presidential home. You touched on it there. Where did President Maduro live, and how accessible would he have been? Because I suppose the question is, would this capture of him have relied on support from within his own government?
Well, where the presidential houses is in the center of the city is called Miraflores, but normally people have said that he never lives there, that he normally used to live in Fuerte Tiuna. But it's something that we don't really know where he lives or where he have been living all these times since the United States started this aggression or this situation with Venezuela. We don't know if they are moving around or where they are staying.
And of course, any president has extremely high security around them. But I imagine in President Maduro's case, it was even more so.
Yes, but even after the fierce incidents with the boats in the Caribbean, Nicolas Maduro was able. He was on the streets not with announced concentrations, but he suddenly appears in activities that they call for, and you can see I was able to go to one of them, and I could easily walk very near to the stage where he was speaking. At that moment, it was very easy to be there, to walk around. And that day wasn't too many people around. And also the other days, he appears on demonstrations nearby Miraflores Palace. And he spent also during Christmas Day going to visit some slums and dancing with the people in the streets. So until the last weeks, all for them was quite normal in a way.
And Vanessa, how do you feel average Venezuelans are likely to react to the capture of President Maduro?
Well, this is all new for the Venezuelan people. We have never faced something similar. We only face like inner demonstrations and political confrontations and in the streets. But this will be a Saturday very quiet and lonely in the streets of Caracas, I guess. I mean, I guess not everybody is going to work, but they publish a statement and they are calling to the people to go to the street, the supporters. They are activated a plan. And so we will see when the days start to move around.
Yeah, because I suppose the interesting sort of dichotomy is that many Venezuelans were opposed to President Maduro as their leader and would have wanted to see him deposed, but then perhaps not all of those would have wanted to see that through this kind of US military intervention.
Well, there is also a law here that condemns with 30 years of prison anyone that supports or calls or finance any kind of military aggression from the United States. So I guess that even if there are supporters from what is going to happen or happening, it's not clear that people will be free and able to go. But the reactions are still very unforeseen. I mean, we don't know how it's going to be the day. There are also a lot of people, old people that live here in the country because we have had a huge migration. So these people will remain in their houses for sure. I mean, it will be a completely different Saturday that we have had in our lives.
Finally, before I let you go, Vanessa, because it's very useful to have a pair of eyes on the ground there, the Venezuelan Defense Minister, Vladimir Padrino, has said that some of the strikes carried out by the US hit civilian areas. We haven't heard any evidence supporting that, or so we don't know. What we do know is that some of the strikes have included military installations. What do you know about whether or not civilian areas were affected, as the Venezuelan Defense Minister is claiming?
Well, as I mentioned before, the videos that I have seen for now, sharing by people in WhatsApp and the social media, is only military compounds or places. The one that I saw with my eyes nearby my home was something in the middle of the runway of the military air base. Maybe is the runway. Few months ago, it was an anti-aerial aircraft there, but I don't see any airplanes in flames or something like that. I don't see. I didn't saw people running or something like that. At least in this place in nearby my home. I don't know for the Tuna if there were civilian casualties or from relatives of the militaries or I don't know. I haven't seen anything of civilians for now, but we need to wait because it was in many places, not only in Caracas, in other states. So we need to wait and see how this news going to be.
And Vanessa, just one more, if I may, about what the situation is for civilians there now, because what we also know is that a state of emergency has been declared by the Venezuelan government, a state of commotion, as they call it. What does that entail? From what we understand, it means that civilians are not allowed outside. Just explain what that means.
Well, it's a new is a new designation. I mean, so for us, is a new designation on the law. So that gives special powers to the president, maybe include the suspension of the guarantees, but even during suspension of guarantees, there are guarantees that has to be followed. So maybe they are going to control the movement, and we don't know. I mean, it gives powers to the president to make decisions. So let's see if he appears, if he says something, or if the Minister of Defense has said something. He only said that he supports this announcement of this press release from the government of the commotion state, but we don't know the details exactly at this moment. But might include the suspension of guarantee, free movement. We lived something similar during what we call the Caracazo, which was a breakup of the population in the 80s.
And how is that normally conveyed to residents? When you get information like this that are sort of restricting what residents are allowed to do, does it get sent as a letter? Do you get notified through a different means? What sort of notification are residents expecting this morning? Because of course they're all waking up to a new world at the moment. But what we do know is that that state of emergency that has been declared is likely to affect residents. So what sort of means does that get conveyed to them?
Normally in these cases, what means is that only media or doctors or essential workers are allowed to move during the city in certain time. We don't know how people are going to react. I mean, maybe it will be people scared trying to buy food, that we haven't seen that, at least in Caracas in these days. I mean, supermarkets were working with normality, also the gasoline supply. So maybe, we don't know. They haven't said exactly that we cannot move from our homes. People will wake up and measure what is going around, maybe go to near supermarkets and check if they're open or closed, or maybe will try to fill their tanks just in case. It is a long day for the Venezuelan people that already started, especially for the people that live in Caracas. So we need to see hour by hour how is this going to be developing and what exactly will be this measure for the society.